Good morning. It is May 2nd. We're here for our regularly scheduled commissioner meeting. We have a full slate of commissioners. We have our administrator, Mr. Gonzalez, and we have our consultant, Mr. Davidson, our clerk of the board. And at this time, I'll call the meeting to order and ask everyone to please rise and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first thing, I'd like to make the announcement that items D and E have been pulled because of corrections going to be made. So items D and E have been pulled from the agenda. We'll ask for approval of the meeting minutes of April 11th and April 18th. Is there any additions, corrections, or revisions? Okay, minutes have been approved. And I believe we have 2 vouchers this morning.
Move for approval of fund expenditures in a total amount of $250,144.46 as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by 2 representatives of the auditor's office and the county administrator.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Move for approval of salary clearing payroll and emergency management payroll in the total amount of $1,167,797.03 as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by 2 representatives of the auditor's office.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Next, we have the consent agenda, 2 items on the consent agenda.
Move for approval of consent agenda items 1 and 2 as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for the consent agenda items 1 and 2 with no discussion. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Takes us down to public comment. Is there anybody on the phone or is there anybody in the room for public comment?
Commissioner, no one on the phone.
No one on the phone? Seeing nobody coming forward, we'll move down to regular business. The first is a proclamation, Child Care Provider Appreciation Day. Mr. Gonzalez.
Commissioner, thank you. And this is a proclamation, obviously, thanking our child care providers. All of us that have children have probably used one at some point or another, so I'll read this. So proclaiming May 12th, 2023 as Franklin County Child Care Provider Appreciation Day. Whereas cities, counties, and organizations nationwide are recognizing child care providers on this day, and whereas over half of the children under the age of 6 nationwide are estimated to spend some time in a non-parental care arrangement on a weekly basis, which provides critical enrichment opportunities and nurtures development for children of all backgrounds and is vital to building blocks of our state economy. Whereas child care providers continue to provide essential high-quality early learning experiences to Washington's children in the face of irregular and long hours, high turnover rates in child care businesses, and increasing stressful working conditions due to the impact of burnout and other workforce-related complications. And whereas our future depends on the quality of these early childhood experiences provided to young children today, support for high-quality childcare represents a worthy commitment to our children's future. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed, we, the duly elected Board of County Commissioners of Franklin County, Washington, do hereby proclaim May 12th, 2023 as Provider Appreciation Day in Franklin County and urge all citizens to recognize child care providers for their important work.
Thank you. So with that proclamation, are we looking for a consensus here?
I think so. There is a spot for you guys to sign, so I think that there's consensus that you believe child care providers are important, which I would, I don't want to go out on a limb, but I think you guys probably do. But so I would recommend signing.
I just didn't see a resolution, so
Yeah.
if the commissioners are all in agreement,
Yes.
Yes.
I'm in agreement, so
No, I need a proclamation.
it's unanimous.
Oh, you need the proclamation. There you go.
All righty, next on the agenda is the Good Roads Certification 2022 Public Works Director, Mr. Erdman.
So this is another proclamation. I don't know if he wants to proclaim them himself, but I was going to say some kind words about Craig and this proclamation, which is given by the state. And,
Yep.
you know, I've been here a little bit more than a month, and I've gotten to know Craig, and, you know, really good guy personally. You could really see the good energy that emanates from him. And, you know, he's got a tough job, as we all know. Anytime you deal with roads and public service, it's not easy. So, you know, I commend him for his patience and also the quality of work that his department produces. So, you know, they service over 1,000 miles of road in Franklin County. So this proclamation, I've got it for him here that I printed out. So I wanted to present this to him on behalf of the commissioners. And, you know, as someone I manage, I feel like I'm lucky to have someone of his quality in that position. So thank you.
Commissioners, anybody else like to say something to Mr. Erdman?
I would just say that, you know, Craig has stepped up and is running the public works and his regular duties. He's doing an outstanding job, and I appreciate all of his efforts.
I would just note that the State County Road Administration Board that I'm privileged to serve on monitors the practices of county road engineers, and there are a number of criteria that have to be met to be in good standing and for the county to have a certificate of good practice. It's a lot more than a proclamation. It is our eligibility ticket for a lot of our state and federal highway funding. So if Craig doesn't do his job, it doesn't just reflect on him. It shuts the door on a lot of state and federal highway money for the county. So it's a big deal, and I appreciate you making sure that we're in compliance and that we don't lose out on all that good highway money. Thank you.
And I'd just like to say, every year I've been here, you've gotten this award. Our county
yeah.
roads has. So I say that is a tribute to the leadership out there. And I know that some days it looks like I'm maybe against you, but I'm just trying to work with you.
I understand.
And I appreciate you, Craig.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the fine staff that we have at Public Works. They're the ones that actually make this happen. You know, I just try and get them pointed in the right direction, but they're the ones that do the heavy lifting. And they've done an outstanding job, as they always do. And I'm most appreciative to have them.
That's the sign of a good leader when you shed the accolades to your employees. Good job.
Thank you.
All right, that moves us down to interlocal agreement for prosecution of Franklin County cases in Benton County Veterans Court.
And
Mr. Davidson.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this contract has taken a little bit of work to get through. We started this quite some time ago, but we had some negotiating to do with Benton County. Benton County has a Veterans Court program that is fairly successful, and we've actually had a participant from Franklin County that has successfully gone through that program. And so it's kind of a test basis. They do good work. It's because we do not have our own program here at this time. We need to get a kind of a formal agreement in place so that we can get some vets started in this alternative route through the criminal justice system that, in my opinion, they deserve. I guess that we've got 2 or 3 people that are able to start on this immediately. With this contract allows for 4 active vets to go through. If there is ever a need for additional vets to go through, they can be added up to, I think that they said about 10 or 12 at the same incremental cost that we negotiated for, which was quite a reduction from what they initially proposed to us. So we've been able to get the price down, and the whole program can be terminated with 60 days written notice. So if we ever do get the opportunity that we can do therapeutic court for veterans here at Franklin County, we have that option. But this gets some vets into a program that are desperately needing this service, and they're ready to go. And so I encourage you to pass this agreement.
So, Mr. Davidson, I have a question. Is our cost based on the number of people there, or are we paying for 4 whether we have 4 or not?
They are pretty adamant that they needed to have a certain amount, whether we have people there or not. And that was one of the negotiated items that we had to work hard at. And so we kind of speculated that 4, we probably are not going to be overpaying if we went with 4. And due to the fact that they will add additional on at the same incremental cost, there's really, this is the best thing that I think we can negotiate. So I'm happy we've got to this point.
Yes.
But yes, we pay for 4.
Gotcha.
But right now, I think we have 3 that are willing to start.
Oh, we have 3 that are veterans that are ready to start.
Right now.
Okay. Is there any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I'm looking at this read-ahead material, and perhaps I missed it, but I'm unable to find anywhere in this record that suggests to me that our county legal office has reviewed and signed off on this package. I don't see any coordination. I don't see any approval of documents, even as to form. So maybe I'm missing it, but certainly seems a matter like this, which I'm sure they're aware of. It seems like the documents themselves maybe what got loaded under read-aheads is not the most recent.
Commissioner, here it is, if you would like to view it.
Yeah, I would, thanks. Okay, I appreciate it. It is signed, and that is the copy. It's in the read-ahead. It's just the one in the read-ahead isn't signed, so it must have been a timing issue. Thank you.
Got it.
So it's Resolution 2023-129.
Move for approval of Resolution 2023-129 as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for Resolution 2023-129. Without further discussion, all in favor?
Chairman, there is further discussion.
Commissioner Peck.
Just want to add a note. These therapeutic courts have proven to be pretty highly successful across the state. And while it is unfortunate that we have to pay for 4 slots, even without assurance that we'll need all 4 of them, I agree with staff that the amount of need in Franklin County for veterans who may find themselves in this position will likely use all these spaces. And even if it doesn't, the value and importance of a program like this is worth the money, even if we only get 2 a year. So thank you for putting this together.
And I'd just like to add that usually on these ASRs, there is a coordination area where it's listing the people that have been, and it's not on this front page form on this ASR. So that could have helped Commissioner Peck realize that for some reason, it's not on our front page.
Okay, we'll make sure in the future that gets on there, so.
Right.
I see this was prepared by Benton County, so they may have an old copy of our form.
All righty. So we have a motion and a second for Resolution 2023-129. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Moves us down to item F, initiating County Road Project 634 North Railroad Avenue. And it is a little tore up, but they were putting pipe in. They did a lot of work out there.
We'll come add our 2 cents worth to it. Oh, there's a vicinity map on here if the board cares to look at it. Figure out how to make it go full screen. So this project is one of 2 projects that are awarded through the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program. through COG. It is a continuation of the infrastructure improvements supporting the Ryman Industrial Center, along with those made by the Port of Pasco and the City of Pasco. The project was awarded $1,846,775 with an additional match by the county of $288,225. Public Works requests that the board initiate the county road project for North Railroad Avenue to be designated CRP 634, followed by approval of the local agency prospectus and agreement with local programs.
Questions, commissioners?
Just a quick observation. Estimated cost for the project's $2.135 million. Local match is $288,000. If you all aren't doing your jobs, which you are by the Certificate of Good Practice, we'd be sitting here without $2.135 million for this project. Just to put a sort of a final point on the issue, that's how much money is at stake. And this is just one project.
Any other comments? If none, I'll.
What is the estimated time for it to be completed?
Well, hopefully we'll get it out to the consultants shortly, and I'm hoping that we'll have it constructed by next year,
All right, thank you.
depending.
Right.
There are always things that can run in the way, but it looks fairly straightforward. I think we should be able to move forward rather quickly. That's at least my hope.
There's a lot of processing plants and stuff in there, so it'll be gravel this fall for the harvest? Or will it be getting paved?
I don't know. We won't be, our section of it won't be in construction this year. I don't anticipate. What the Port of Pasco and City of Pasco's project, I believe they're planning on being paved out by this fall, but I don't quote me on that. I don't recall completely.
All right. If there's not any other questions or comments, I'd entertain a motion.
Move for approval of Resolution 2023-132 as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for Resolution 2023-132. Without further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moves us down to approval of local agency project prospectus CRP 634 North Railroad Avenue.
Yes. Generally, this is a consent agenda item, but since our order consent agenda comes first in our meetings, procedurally, we needed to do the previous resolution first. And approve this.
So if there's no discussion, I'll entertain a motion. Resolution 2023-133.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for Resolution 2023-133. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Moves us down to declaring sheriff vehicles as obsolete and move into inter-vehicle pool. Mr. Gonzalez.
Commissioner, yes, as you mentioned, this is declaring sheriff's vehicles as obsolete, and then we're going to move those into the vehicle pool. This will be part of our updated travel policy, so I work with the auditor's office, in particular Ryan Brimacombe on this, the accounting supervisor. Fiscal impact is $85,242. That includes maintenance and gas and other things of that nature. So what's happened is there was 5 vehicles in question that came to their end of useful life for the sheriff's office. They were transferred out of the sheriff's office, and they'll be moved into the Franklin County Vehicle Pool. The county administrator, myself, will manage that pool. These vehicles were titled to the sheriff's office, but we've been working really diligently. Jennifer in our office is titling them in general to Franklin County. So these will be incorporated, like I said, into the travel policy. It's a 2018 Jeep Cherokee, 2015 Ford Explorer that the prosecuting attorney will drive, and then there's 3 Ford Tauruses that'll be for general use. So if a staff member needs to travel outside the area, they'll be able to use these vehicles. So it gives us some flexibility, and I think it gives people more opportunity not to use their own vehicle. So essentially, the big issue was really the titling process. We couldn't necessarily have employees riding around with titled vehicles to the sheriff's office and then perhaps get pulled over and people wondering, a law enforcement officer wondering why they're titled to a law enforcement official and a Franklin County employee is driving that vehicle. So we've gotten that rectified, and so here we are today.
All righty, is there any questions?
I just want to say I think it's a good use of county funds, and I appreciate the sheriff's office sending those over to us. The elections department is going to have the use of that vehicle, and I think that's very important. So when they're out picking up ballots, they're in an authorized, signed vehicle from the county and not doing it in their personal
Right.
county, or not in their personal car, which looks pretty conspicuous regarding everything that's happened lately. So I think it's a great idea. So thank you.
Thanks.
And I'd have to
Chad?
agree with it. Go ahead, Mr. Commissioner Peck.
I'll just add that I think Commissioner Mullen's observation is correct, and I think the very same observation applies to our assessors when they're out looking at property, so that people know that the person sitting in front of their house taking a picture is, in fact, a county employee on duty.
Absolutely, and I think the transparency piece that both of you mentioned is because it was, especially in this day and age, with all the conversation around elections, I think that was just the optics of that, and that was extremely important to them. Because over the years, they've been using their personal vehicles, and people have been using their vans, and and sort of that no good deed goes unpunished. So with the best intentions, the optics on it, I think, will be much better, and ultimately, it'll look much better for the county and give us more flexibility and transparency.
Yeah, and I'll just say that last election, I had several people calling me about a conspicuous car out there picking up the ballots. And I think being marked is going to be a plus for us.
Oh, absolutely.
So with that, I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve Resolution 2023-134 as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for Resolution 2023-134. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Takes us down to I, Bi-County ARPA Memorandum of Understanding with Benton County Council of Governments. And Michelle, Ms. Hoyt,
Good morning, Commissioners.
good morning.
So I think we have a couple of items to discuss. One is the ARPA Memorandum of Agreement, so we wanted to address that first. I believe that you have copies of that memorandum. It's a tri-agency memoranda between the Council of Governments, Benton County and Franklin County, to provide $400,000 in ARPA funding to the Council of Governments to provide economic recovery coordination activities on behalf of both counties. That agreement is broken out into $250,000 from Benton County and $150,000 from Franklin County, spread over a 2-year time frame. So it would start as soon as we have agreements in place this year and run through mid-year of 2025. It includes semi-annual reports to both commissions, along with semi-annual invoicing for those services. And it is a continuation. The Council of Governments received CARES Act funding in 2020 to begin providing COVID-19 recovery support for our communities, which we did for a 2-year period until that funding ran out. The ARPA funding is a continuation, if you will, of CARES Act, looking at not only recovery for COVID-19, but also ongoing resiliency for the economy, and what are things that we can do to make sure that our communities can withstand economic shocks in the future. So this allows us to keep staffing at a level that we can continue to provide specific focus in those areas of economic resiliency and recovery.
All right. Questions?
Michelle, thanks for coming. I've enjoyed working with you during my time at the City of Pasco. You're always pleasant to work with and very good at what you do, so I appreciate all that you do for the community. In terms of this ARPA funding, and I was looking at some of the scope, it's pretty broad at what's here. Is there an opportunity that we could have like a really focused work plan for Franklin County, or do you have to keep it in that broad perspective?
As long as it falls under that umbrella of recovery and resiliency, we have a lot of room. So yes, we have Zach Rakai is joining our staff on Monday, and this program will actually fall under his responsibilities. And so, yes, that was one of our questions, and a bit of the chicken or the egg in negotiating this agreement is, do we just put together an agreement that's pretty broad in general and then work with each county to find out if there are particular programs or focuses that they would like us to spend that time on? So, yes,
Right.
to answer your question, we can do that.
And I was excited to see Zach going over. He was an old colleague at the city of Pasco, really excellent. So I think that's just a wonderful pickup for your organization. And I had a chance to run into Zach the other day at the HAPO meeting. And so he's excited about it. So I'm really excited to work with him. So hopefully, we can have some more conversation around really getting focused and, making it Franklin County focused. Because, what I'm recognizing is we need to do some long-term strategy planning here. It hasn't been done over the years. So I'm hoping I could work with him closely to do that.
Agreed.
So Michelle, I got a question here.
Yes.
The MOA is approved by the Franklin County prosecutor, but the Benton County prosecutor has raised a concern with the state statute RCW 43.09.210. Has that been resolved?
I can't speak to that on behalf of Benton County. I do know that their commissioners have approved the memorandum at their meeting last week and signed in authorization. But as far as on their end between their commissioners and their legal counsel, that I can't answer.
So they've signed on for the $250,000 against the will of their prosecuting attorney?
I couldn't tell you. I just know that they did approve it at their last meeting.
And in the background, it talks about the economic recovery coordination and these types of COVID-19 recovery purposes. And I just got to take it back to the situation that happened down here, and I went to the meeting and witnessed Cubbies and Electric as well as Knights have that building, and what happened at the meeting there. And I know they put in a bid, but they felt pressured to put in that bid or it was going to go back out to auction. These are veterans, both families, and honestly, I thought they could have been treated a little bit more fairly on it, because they did rent a building that was repossessed, recovered the $150,000 that it was in the red, took it to $93,000, I believe, in the plus, and then Ben Franklin Council of Governments, they're bringing in, basically, they're getting $427,000 out of that building that was built in 1955, and the electrical isn't up to date, and that plumbing's not up to date. They're on a sewer that might have to be attached to the city sewer, and there's a lot of costs there for them. And I thought that it could have been a little bit more lenient towards the businesses that are there, and I was very disturbed that they weren't treated more in a manner of helping them recover that building to be in the plus. And that sort of, it bothers me to the day, because we're putting an undue amount of pressure on burden on these businesses that are veterans, and economic recovery from COVID. We heard testimony from Knights. They suffered dearly through the COVID epidemic. They were losing $30,000 a month. So I appreciate everything you guys are doing, and I thank you for your time on the phone. It was a pleasure talking with you. And I would like to know about go ahead.
It seems to me, hi, Michelle, we've talked on the phone, but we've never met in person.
Yes, hi.
It seems to me that the RCW was strictly a matter of that they went out 3 more as far as subsection than they needed to. It seems to me when I was talking with Jeff that it should be the 4390, I believe. was correct. It was just the
309 dot.
09.
Yeah, 09210.
It seems to me it was more just a matter of the subsections below that were not necessarily needed in there because it was a little too specific.
So has that been resolved in Benton County then?
I will double check on that. As
'Cause I'm-
far as I know, they did sign off on it, and the Benton County attorney also had signed. The only reason that this is not signed as well, it was by their chair, but he wasn't able to make it back on Thursday in order to re-sign. But we just had the year. We were looking for consistency in the agreement. It was because the invoicing, some of the work that will be going into 2025, initially it was thought to be 2024. So that's the only reason that we don't have a signed one. It will be coming. But they had signed the agreement as well before. But so what we did is we made things consistent to where 2025 is throughout the agreement, this one. And then also, we needed a unique identifying number for ARPA, and that's required in all contracts. So we also corrected that, and that was the only difference why they have to re-sign, and they were just waiting for Chairman McKay to re-sign. But I will double check on that as well.
Any other questions? Concerns? Nothing? No. All right.
Commissioner, if I may?
Absolutely.
I know you also wanted just a general update on the COG and the work that we're doing on behalf of Franklin County, and I do
Yes.
have that for you as well. But I can wait until you finish the
Well,
ARPA piece if you'd like,
don't you-
or I can do that now, whichever.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and do that now, please?
Okay. So. Heads, but I am a big fan of this in your hands.
Thank you.
Have. Some of this is repeat information that we don't really need to dive into unless you have questions from last year. But when I came and addressed the commission last year, it was really for the point of providing kind of a 101 about what the Council of Governments is and the fact that we're a fairly complex organization. We are a Council of Governments. We are the Regional Planning Commission for Benton and Franklin counties. On the federal level, we are the Metropolitan Planning Organization and the Transportation Management Area under the Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration. You heard briefly from Public Works Director Erdman about the STBG funding for his current project that came through the MPO and the Council of Governments because of that designation with Federal Highways and with WashDOT. Under WashDOT, we are the Regional Transportation Planning Organization. All of that is to say that it's our job to look at all of the transportation activities in both counties and make sure that we've got synergy between projects, because although roads and other modes of transportation are owned by different jurisdictions, they're all considered one seamless system when you look at our counties. And so that's part of our role, is to ensure collaborative communication and oversight between those state and federal agencies and our local jurisdictions. And then last, we are an economic development district under the U.S. Department of Commerce Economic Development Agency. But if you go to the next page after our logo there, I think that this is probably what you care about most, which is, what have you done for me lately? So for Franklin County, if we look at transportation planning and funding, for the 5 years between 2018 and 2023, so through the current year, $3,093,139 has been awarded in transportation project funding, like you heard about this morning. There are multiple projects related to that. And then in addition, we provided letters of support in 2021 for congressionally directed spending application. Under economic development, we're going to talk in a moment about broadband, but our service to the county in support of the Franklin County Broadband Action Team is bringing $51,000 to support those administration of broadband activities here. We have our EPA Brownfields Coalition Assessment Program, of which any property owner in Franklin County may be eligible to participate to provide assessments of any property that is considered a potential brownfield. Although we have not yet done a project on behalf of Franklin County itself, we have been working closely with the city of Pasco. Currently, we've done one phase one evaluation in a building in downtown Pasco. We actually used this program in support of the property that you mentioned previously, where Knights and Cubbies are located, to do both a phase one and a phase two environmental assessment on that property, and to make sure that there were no issues or risks related to the transfer of that property. And we're doing a redevelopment project with the city of downtown, all of which is currently valued at $105,000. We provide opportunities to coordinate one-on-one meetings with our congressional staffers to talk about any issue that our jurisdiction would like to have time with the congressional staffers on. Again, I don't believe we have taken advantage of that opportunity for Franklin County as of yet, but that is available, as well as technical assistance related to multiple funding opportunities. But what that really means is that in 2023, Franklin County's dues assessment to BFCOG was $11,629. That's 4.4% of our assessment budget. Your total assessment paid to BFCOG since 1997 is $290,665. $290,665 since 1997. So your 5-year ROI, including the $150,000 that we're discussing for ARPA, gives you a $48.56 return on every dollar invested in BFCOG. So I will say that there are many services that we can perform and come alongside any of our jurisdictions. I don't know that we have had the kind of relationship with Franklin County on that level that we'd like to have, other than our relationship with Craig. But we do work within the county often with the Port of Pasco, the City of Pasco, as well as the membership by the rural communities in Franklin County. We do a lot of support for the City of Connell, for example. So that gives you a little bit of an update of at least what we're doing for Franklin County now, and knowing that the invitation is open as we talk about ARPA or other programs. We absolutely want to be a good partner and help our jurisdictions access state and federal funding and provide planning that helps you all make good decisions and use resources in a meaningful way to help our communities be more economically vibrant and resilient. So the rest of the information in these slides is a lot of background. I do think it's important to know that right now, when we ask our member jurisdictions to support the COG, we have limited that to what's required for matching on our federal programs. Our state programs don't require a match. So 13.5% on transportation programs. Our economic development program is a 1-to-1 match. That's $75,000 a year. Between that and the money that comes from EDA, that barely covers the cost of having a single person working on economic activities on behalf of 2 counties. So that's one of the reasons that ARPA funding is very helpful for us, is to ensure that we can keep a staffing level that provides the time and availability that we can be here to be a service. Under regional planning for transportation specifically, we've mentioned that call for projects that makes about $5 million available per biennium through a competitive process to our jurisdictions to pay for local transportation projects. This funding is only available to jurisdictions who are a member of their metropolitan planning organization. So as you heard from Craig, that provided valuable funding on just one project that he was talking about this morning. We produce a 20-year metropolitan transportation plan that is really a compilation looking forward to ensure that the transportation needs are being addressed through the plans for each of our jurisdictions. And state transportation projects that are not listed in that metropolitan transportation plan are not eligible for federal funding. So again, that collaboration between Public Works and the COG becomes important to not only the funding that flows through us, but accessing direct funding through state or federal programs.
So if I could ask a question, and it could be directed to you or Commissioner Peck, because he is the chairman of this, is in that 20-year plan, do we have a bridge that crosses the Columbia River at Horn Rapids or somewhere thereabouts?
No, there is not.
There's no plan?
However, our staff, there have been, I believe, 2 iterations of a feasibility study done in the past to look at a 4th Columbia River crossing. It's been nearly a decade since the last feasibility study was looked at, and so our staff does have in our plans conversations for how can we fund a new updated feasibility study to again look at the feasibility for a 4th river crossing. So it is on our radar, but it is not part of any current 20-year plan, no.
Well, Ms. Chair, I'll just add a couple of notes to that. Excuse me, I was involved in that bridge consideration process a decade or so ago and participated through most of it until it became apparent that one of the identified options was through my living room at the Moore Mansion. And so I recused myself from that committee and let the rest of the group carry on with the work. When they completed it, the determination was that there was no funding available to cover even the environmental studies that would be necessary, let alone actually building a bridge. A bridge like that is going to require substantial federal funding and a lot of federal involvement, my opinion anyway. And then I'll add that Washington State Department of Transportation has communicated a number of different times that their focus for this region and others that are similar is to try and avoid concentrating traffic in the urban areas, but in fact start looking more of a beltway mentality as you see at other major cities. And some of the possibilities that have been discussed, not officially, but just in these group discussions and strategic planning, have been a possibility of something up in the vicinity of Sagemore, crossing the Columbia on the west side. Another possibility has been thrown out as something coming down off of Oregon Avenue down near the Port of Pasco across the Columbia to connect with 397, specifically to provide a pathway for vehicles carrying hazmat materials rather than sending them across the Blue Bridge and 395 up through the center of Kennewick. So there have been a number of proposals, but there's been no formal action on it in about the last decade. And I think it's time to start looking again. And I think any federal or state support is going to require a beltway mentality and some pretty robust environmental studies. Thanks.
Commissioner Peck, to your point as well, the increase in freight travel, especially across both of the bridges of the Columbia and heading up through Kennewick, based on the significant industrial growth that is coming and will continue to come to Franklin County and Pasco, is of concern to multiple jurisdictions, both for traffic safety as well as just wear and tear on roads, et cetera. So one of the actions that we have already taken is we are incorporating freight travel data into our travel demand model so that we can have a better idea of what those impacts would be. And then we are, in fact, conducting a separate freight study that's going on currently. Again, that'll give us some better indicators that as the truck traffic begins to move. For example, I've heard estimates with Dairy Gold that there could be as many as 150 trucks a day, for example. Once freight starts to move, we'll be able to see the impacts of that in our travel demand model going forward.
And let's not forget about Amazon when they get those two big buildings up and
Absolutely.
running.
Absolutely. There's a lot of additional freight and truck travel that will be coming over the next several years. Sure.
And I like the idea of a beltway. We've talked about this with many constituents, and Sagemore would be a perfect crossing there for that beltway to come around and grab 395. And Benton County's already well on their way for a beltway,
Exactly.
We
Between
need
the
to-
bypass highway and the other,
and we need to catch up.
agreed.
Okay.
So that tells you just a little bit of the activities that happen under the transportation side of the house. What we call, rather than calling our other activities economic development, sometimes that's a confusing term. We refer to it as local government resources, because in the world of economic development, that is what we are really doing, is we are working with our local jurisdictions to help them with planning and to help with accessing resources to support economic development, generally talking about infrastructure or other things. So that $75,000 a year that matches the Economic Development Administration's $75,000, that keeps and maintains the comprehensive economic development strategy. That document is a requirement from the EDA. It is a snapshot or planning document looking at our two-county region and what impacts the economy here. When the Economic Development Administration and, frankly, other funders are looking for third-party validation that projects will have an economic impact or important to the region, that Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, or CEDS, is one of the documents that jurisdictions can use to justify the validity and the importance of projects. So it is very important for us to continue to maintain that project and that document. That economic recovery coordination that we mentioned and technical assistance that we've also talked about. The next couple of slides give you just a little bit of a look at what we've done for the last 2 years with the CARES Act funding that we had available. Our responsibilities for that specifically include researching and identifying recovery and development projects for our member organizations, providing technical assistance to those member organizations and stakeholders, assisting with coronavirus recovery efforts, identification of grant-eligible projects for locally impacted communities, and facilitating disaster-generated economic development projects that align with EDA funding. That's pretty specific, but what we did do during the last 2 years was 169 technical assistance meetings and presentations over that 2 years. So 169 times our staff was interacting with staff members of local jurisdictions and other stakeholders to talk about economic recovery, economic resiliency, and resources available to support. We created a document called the Economic Recovery and Resiliency Strategy that really charted how did our communities respond to COVID, which organizations really took up a mantle in order to provide emergency support and services. For example, the counties making grant funding available and partnering with other nonprofits so that we have a documented roadmap of how that happened organically under COVID-19 and how it could be used again in the future should there be another economic or other disaster that impacts the economy of our region. So again, that document's available to provide a pathway to follow so that we're not starting from scratch in the future, as well as other additional resources. So again, when we talk about ARPA, it really is a continuation of the CARES Act and those continued activities. So when we talk about economic resiliency efforts for Franklin County, currently right now there are 3 that the COG is involved in that I believe support economic resiliency for Franklin County. One, of course, is that Brownfields program, taking away some of the question and burden about assessing a property that maybe is not being developed because of fear of potential contamination, and providing free phase 1, phase 2 environmental assessment, as well as regulated building materials surveys for properties. The second is this Franklin County Broadband Action Team, and looking at the needs and opportunities to expand internet service throughout the entire county. If we learned one thing from COVID-19 is that there is not digital equity for our counties. There are people who cannot reliably access the internet, and we saw what that did, especially in times of an emergency, for education and access of services. So how can we look at solving those issues in the future through that action team and available funding programs? And then the Ag Innovation Center discussion that's currently happening with Randy Hayden as the chair of the MyTri Ag Committee and as the Port of Pasco, looking at bringing together the ag community to form some sort of an Ag Innovation Center. We are actively participating in that as well, talking about access for potential resources and long-range planning. So again, there are activities that are in motion. By all means, though, those are not the only things that can and should be happening, but we are in fact focused on Franklin County and your economy and resilience as much as our other partners in the Council of Governments. Have any questions for me?
Questions, commissioners?
Not a question, just thank you for being here, as you as you always do. Nicely done, and I think it's a good summary, and I would just invite anyone who wants to dig deeper on these issues that there's a lot more content behind this sort of high-level summary, but thank you for being here and helping educate us all, including all the people watching, on all the things that Council's doing for all of our members. Thanks.
Thank you.
Commissioner Mullen?
No, just thank you for your efforts. Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Gonzalez, Mr. Davidson, anything?
Go ahead, Dwayne.
Just, hi, Michelle.
Hi.
Just one quick question, and I hate to put you on the spot, but I'm not,
No, that's
I've been
okay.
out of state for a week, and I haven't caught up on all the legislation that made it or didn't make it. The Ag Innovation Center, one of our local representatives is really pushing hard for a feasibility study to do that. You're nodding the head, sounds that you were aware of that.
Yes.
Was that successful?
It was.
Oh, great. That's
Yes.
good.
Yes, Representative Barnard was successful in securing, I believe, $200,000 to support the feasibility study for the Ag Innovation Center.
And that does have the opportunity of evolving into something that might be private-public. Is that true, that we might be able to bring some major private investors into that center?
Theoretically, yes. It's very much conceptual at this time. In fact, there's a strategic discussion this afternoon happening at the Port of Pasco to talk more about the center. But yes, theoretically, that could be true.
All right. So without further discussion, I want to thank you, Michelle, for your
Thank you.
presentation, and I would strongly recommend that we start that, looking into that beltway again, because we're growing so fast that we're going to need some help on these roads.
Agreed. So I know that you're waiting on your ARPA question. The other takeaway you had in your read-aheads, this actually was in your read-ahead, was an update on the Franklin Broadband Action Team and a request that if the commissioners are so willing, if they would ask the broadband office for a rapid design study. It is paid for through the broadband office. They have a consultant ready to do that, and it provides some important data about costs and strategies that could extend internet access across Franklin County. There is not a commitment to move forward with any specific plans. Is really just a provision of data. But I do know that the Franklin PUD would greatly appreciate that information as we look at strategies for broadband for Franklin County. However, this rapid study can only be requested by a county commissioner on behalf of their county. So I would ask that if that's something that the commissioners are willing to send the email to Connie Rivera at Commerce to request that, the action team would greatly appreciate that data.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So with that, with no further discussion, entertain a motion.
Move to approve Resolution 2023-125 as presented.
Second?
There's been a motion and a second for Resolution 2023-125. I would just like to say that I would like to see the clarity from the PA in Benton County, see if he has signed on to this or not, but after the vote has happened, because he sees a problem with this and just want to know, make sure that everything's on the up and up with the ARPA funds. So with that, there's been a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 And I will abstain until we get that information. So noted that it is passed. Next, we'll move down to the broadband update, which we already received, and would like consensus from the board for the go-ahead to look into this broadband.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate it if you do just that. I have not inserted myself into that process because the board hadn't yet had a discussion. And as the chair of the Council of Governments, it would be more appropriate coming from you. So I appreciate your willingness to do that. I think it's certainly in the best interest of our citizens.
Okay.
I'm in agreement.
Okay, so with that, we'll move down to the Commissioner Administrator updates. Mr. Davidson, do you have any updates as far as?
No, Mr. Chairman, right after the meeting last week, I have taken a week off, and I flew off to Nebraska and met family I've never met before at the family homestead that still exists in the family in a little town called Litchfield. And pleased to say I ate good. I ate a lot of steak and didn't eat chicken once the entire time I was gone. So.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Commissioner. Continue to be busy, as you can imagine. Of note, Lords has a new CEO that was just announced this past Tuesday. So David Elgarico will be the new CEO. I'm almost certain we'll have an opportunity to meet him on the 4th of this month. So myself and Commissioner Mullen are going to an open house along with Sheriff Raymond to meet the folks out there in Richland and to see some of the services that are going on. On Monday, April 24th, I had the opportunity to visit Lords in Richland and see some of the services that they have going on. So it's quite robust, what they're doing out there. So they're really trying to make an impact with the drug crisis, the homeless crisis. It seems like there's no end to the needs, but they're certainly stepping into that and really trying to help things out. We had a HAPO advisory board meeting this past Tuesday on April 25th. I think what's significant about this, first time this group met since 2019, Commissioner Didier attended that meeting with myself. In attendance were City Manager Adam Lincoln, Councilman Craig Maloney, Councilman J.R. Campos, Zach Radkai of the City of Pasco, Jesse Rice, Shirley Jones, Shirley Simmons. The SVM group had a chance to present along with HAPO staff members. So they presented funding and some of the profit and loss statements. So good to see that group back together. .09 funds meeting with the Port of Pasco, that was on Wednesday. So our jurisdictional partners will have the opportunity to get some of these economic development funds. So we'll start divvying those out. I think of note is really robust this year. We have right around $5 million to divvy out to our jurisdictional partners. So these certainly make an impact for the Port of Pasco for things like Dairy Gold. You don't think about infrastructure a lot of times, but sewer and water is so important to economic development, and these type of funds give people the opportunity, cities like Connell, Colotis, Mesa, to get into the mix. Had a chance to meet with Finance Director Tim Anderson to talk about the budget and really get up to speed on those things. One thing we talked about was just, the health of Franklin County. We really need to develop a strategy for a reserve fund. That's something I'm going to look into quite closely. So Tim's been really good to work with, so really enjoy working with him. So he's getting me up to speed. Attended a BCS board meeting. This is the Benton County Emergency Services. Officially took over for Sheriff Raymond's board position. So this is the group that oversees 911, emergency services, and really had an opportunity to dig in with Sheriff Raymond, what I'm fully aware of, and there's really a need for redundancy in a backup system, which there is not one right now. So that's really important, and we really think in Franklin County we should have a backup system so our deputies are safe in the field. So that's something I'm working and exploring on with Sheriff Raymond. Personally, I'm working on a strategic plan, so you'll see that in your inboxes pretty soon, a county administrator work plan. Without a roadmap, we don't know where we're going. So, certainly that's something I'm digging in with the staff that I manage. We haven't done any strategic planning here, and I don't think ever. To put it in perspective, when I left the city of Pasco, we had 7 different plans going from our downtown master plan, Broadmoor plan, our transportation master plan, our CIP plan, which was capital improvements. So this is something I'm glad the Council of Governments is here, because I think we're going to really have to lean on them, because we don't have the robust pockets that our friends across the street have to perform all these studies. So I'm hoping I can lean on Michelle, and like I mentioned, really in particularly excited that Zach Radkai is going to come to the table for them, because I think he's going to just be an awesome addition. So was really excited, and he's an old colleague. And so that's about it, just continuing marching forward. And I think the other thing I'd like to mention to the folks watching is we do have our social media platforms where, hey, we're up to about 430 followers already and likes on Facebook, so follow us there. And we've transparency, that's what I'm all about. So I appreciate IS's help with that, and everybody following us and liking us. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Commissioner Peck.
A couple of quick follow-ups on what the county administrator said as part of my update. We do have a Franklin County policy on a reserve fund. Probably ought to be something north of 10%, but as I recall, it's 7%. And it's been a recurring theme in our spending is that we need to be putting money into that reserve fund, not constantly tapping into it. So I appreciate your looking at that. That's a good thing. The .09 funds that you mentioned are, for those who aren't aware, on the retail sales tax of the 8 or 9% that you pay. The first 6.5 cents of that, 6.5 cents, goes straight to the governor's office or to the state, to be more fair. And the .09 is a rebate, a return that comes back to qualifying counties out of that 6.5. So we get just a sliver under 1% of that back, and it's earmarked specifically for economic development, and the sole authority for the spending of those funds in Franklin County is a majority of this board. Now, we have partners with the city of Pasco and with the port and other agencies, and the intent from the legislature for these funds is for it to be used in a cooperative venture with the cities and the ports, which is something that has happened and I'm sure will continue to happen. But just want to add a little bit of context. Not everybody is aware of what .09 funds are. And more importantly than probably any of that is that the legislature in this present session, I say present because I don't think it's over yet. I think there's a special session coming. Those .09 funds were running close to their expiration, and the legislature extended that to 2054. That's pretty critical because we use those funds to take out bonds to build projects, and you need these funds to backstop and to make the payments on those bonds. So an extension out to 2054 gives that program a much longer life, much needed. A lot of my discussion this week has been working with the Washington State Association of Counties, and in particular the Legislative Steering Committee. It's increasingly looking like we will have a special session of the state legislature. I'm just like everybody else looking at the indicators and making hopefully an educated guess. I don't have any secret information, but it looks to me like we will. And the primary purpose, perhaps the sole purpose, is going to be address what they call the Blake fix, which is the drug possession issue, and the fact that come the end of this fiscal year, June 30th, on the 1st of July, we won't have any laws regulating at the state level the possession issue. I know the sheriff is already working with some folks on local ordinances on the chance that the state legislature doesn't get their act together and actually give us some legislation that will address this issue. A lot of my time this week, frankly, has been focused on those meetings and trying to help WASAC craft a position on what might work as a compromise between the various factions in the legislature that weren't able to give us legislation during the normal session. Thanks.
Commissioner Mullen.
So this week had the visited Tri-Cities board meeting, also the Washington WASAC meeting yesterday, their presentation. Pasco Chamber of Commerce meeting on May 4th. The Pasco Posse is going to have a networking event 4 to 6 p.m. at Gisa Stadium. Also, the topic of the Amazon building, number 1, is set to open later this year. Also had the Benefits Committee meeting, and also out of the chamber reported that Alaska to Seattle flight 7, they were using 737s twice a day, morning and night. This is also done to help with the pilot shortage. Like every industry, everybody's suffering for people to work. So with the pilot shortage, they can carry more passengers using those larger planes. Also had the opportunity to attend the Spokane Home Builders Association annual meeting. And again, the emphasis there was trying to get trade schools for the younger generation to get interested in learning a trade because, again, employment, it's just getting harder and harder to find people to work in every field. So that was their whole emphasis, was on trying to work with the schools and get more trade programs put into place. And that is my update for this week. Thank you.
Well, my last week consisted of the Ben Franklin Workforce Development Executive Meeting and regular meeting. Then April 25th, the HAPO meeting that I attended with Mr. Gonzalez. And I'd like to congratulate Leo Paralysis, who was elected chair of that committee. He's going to do a good job. He's already taken the grasp and sent out some emails. The 28th was the agenda meeting. It's been moved to Fridays now. and we got to correct that on the agenda because it has a Thursday and a Friday, but it's just Friday mornings. And then I would like to just say, good job, Mike, on your update.
Thank you.
I'm reading through that, and then you're also going into the future, the next week of what's already transpiring, and I'm saying good luck with your meeting with Governor Inslee.
Yeah, I'll be meeting with Governor Inslee on Wednesday, and he's meeting with a group of stakeholders to talk about some serious issues, and from homelessness to the drug crisis, and so hopefully we can have some robust conversations and try to get some funding. Really, I mean that's what it's all about, to get those funding opportunities that always seem to go over to our friends on the west side. So hopefully I'll get an opportunity to conversate with him and maybe say hi from Clint Didier, huh?
Sure, why not?
I might get tossed out of there.
But in your updates, I mean, you went into quite detail, and I just have to say thanks, Commissioner Peck, for getting those doors unchained out there at the HAPO that could have got us into some serious trouble. And I just like your update. It's very well done.
Thank you.
But speaking about HAPO, I think, I appreciate the Simmons. They brought us in, they came in an emergency status, got us through it, but I think it's time we start looking at, we need to start now because our contract's going to be up. We need to go through the RFP process, do we not, to get the okay for a long-term person to manage that area? Don't we have to go through the RFP process?
I don't think you necessarily have to, Commissioner, but if it's the will of the board, we can certainly look into that and look at other opportunities of people who could potentially manage. But if you give me the direction, I'll certainly do what the board's will is.
I would think an RFP process would be warranted. I would be in favor of it. I don't know how my other commissioners feel about it.
Mr. Chairman, we're doing updates now. I wonder if we could make this a separate agenda item. I'm not opposed to your thinking on the matter, but this really ought to be a separate agenda item, not updates.
It's just a request for an RFP. It's something that we didn't go through because it was a rush with the emergency status of nobody managing it, but I think it's time that we go through that process, and I'm in favor of it. So if we want to put it on the agenda for next week, I'd ask you to please consider it and bring forth your thoughts then.
I'm not even opposed to having it as an added agenda item today. I just think it's an important enough topic that it ought to be separated out from our updates. Thanks.
Okay. So that concludes our updates. And is there elected and department head business? Is there any elected department heads that would like to come forward?
Commissioners, as an FYI, I too will be attending the Regional Police Academy opening, which is Wednesday, that the governor's going to be at. But for your general knowledge, we will have 3 deputies in that academy, starting in that academy, and just raw numbers is it's probably going to save the county taxpayer dollars somewhere in the tune of about $100,000 or north of by having them here at this regional academy. So it's a partnership that we need to embrace and make sure we keep the regional academy here because it's a cost savings for everybody involved. And then secondly, on the Blake issue, the commissioner is right. The chiefs and sheriffs and 2 prosecutors are going to be meeting here pretty soon to discuss the Blake issues. The general consensus from the law enforcement executives, which is the chiefs and sheriffs, is that we need to prepare an ordinance, and our ordinances need to kind of mirror each other in both Benton and Franklin County and in the cities, and have that ordinance ready to go for when the special session is done. If the special session gets called, it's not fixed, because the only way it's going to get fixed is by ordinances to take place in our own communities. And when you create ordinances, your ordinances can't be greater than, they just have to be less than. And then you can create an ordinance versus an RCW from the state, et cetera. So there's a lot of arguing going on about it, for lack of better words, but somewhere we have to have something in place, so if or when the special session fails, we're ready to go. So that's where we're at with that.
Sheriff, we've created this so we can interact with you now, so we can have discussion. You said all the sheriffs of the state?
No. Regionally, Benton and Franklin County sheriffs and the police chiefs.
Okay.
And then the two prosecutors, the Benton County prosecutor, the Franklin County
Okay.
prosecutor.
Okay.
We're gonna sit and round table what a ordinance that everybody's ordinances to mirror each other, so it's more, so you can enforce it and move things back and forth.
Well,
through
all the
process.
counties are having the same problem.
They are.
Can we invite other sheriffs from other counties on the east side to attend and
Well, they're already starting their own ordinances.
Okay.
In each of those counties. So for us, because we're unique with being at Benton and Franklin County and the bridges, they don't draw up at night, they go back and forth. So it's important that we all
work together?
get on the same sheet of music. So I envision what our ordinance will look like is that we will send those violations into our district court and we'll partner with Pasco Municipal Court so that we can send those violations to one court to try to manage them and implement some of the therapeutic issues, I guess is the way to put that, as we go through that process into our district court, because it'd be more manageable. Because the jail obviously is
Right.
ran by the county, and so you're able to move all those into those pieces in place. But we'll see how it works out.
Any other questions for the sheriff while he's up there?
Just an observation. There are voices across the state in the various 39 counties, and many of them are saying, let's not play up the idea of local ordinances because that's going to create this patchwork quilt of different legal standards and people driving across county lines, and that's why we have state rules and all this other good stuff. Whether a person agrees with that position or not is not my observation. My observation is that the chiefs and sheriffs who are working on this and who are speaking out about it, as you are, I believe has contributed significantly to the pressure on the legislature and the governor to go back into session and try and come up with a fix. I think if everyone, yourself included, had just sat quiet, they might think that, we can give this a try and see how it works out. So I for one, initially was a little concerned about us jumping out there and saying we're going to do our own ordinance. But as it turns out, I think it's created the necessary pressure to get people to do their jobs in Olympia, I hope.
That's correct, and the same message needs to be sent that we're moving forward and we're ready to pull the trigger if they don't get the job done.
No, I think that's the message that they're hearing, and I think that's due some credit for the legislature reconsidering and the governor reconsidering the idea of a special session. It's still, by most accounts, 50-50, but anyway.
Well, you just have to look at the actual vote on the Blake decision this last time around.
Pretty clear.
It's well, actually, it's really clear for me that they're not going to do anything. So, yeah.
Well,
I don't know about you, but when I get in the fist fight, I just want to take my gloves off and bare knuckle it. So that's where we're looking at it is.
that doesn't sound like you at all.
So Sheriff, this is why I'm saying to maybe coordinate with the other sheriffs, and numbers matter. When we come together, we're all on the same sheet of music, your words, with all these other counties on the east side. It's going to make a
Right.
big statement.
So there's obviously the 38, 39 counties. I missed it. And
39.
out of that, 30, and out of that,
39.
out of the counties, there's only one county, King County, that doesn't have a sheriff because they voted not to have a sheriff. But there is a Washington State Sheriff's Association. I'm one of the executive board members on it. And these issues are being discussed with that
Good.
board. And political pressures are being placed.
Good.
There's also an Eastern Washington Council of Governments that could be a vehicle for that discussion.
Correct. Yep.
And I sit on that. I'd like you to join me next meeting.
Anytime, you can invite me anytime.
All right.
It's an open invite. You can go anytime.
All right.
Thank you, Sheriff. Any other department heads?
So the last couple of weeks, Commissioners, I've brought you up to speed a little bit on the substitute House Bill 1355, which deals with exemptions for seniors with lower incomes, disabled, veteran disabled. I have, just in the last few days, been able to acquire the numbers from the Office of Financial Management. Our county will qualify individuals all the way up to an income of $61,000. Not 55 plus, but it'd be 61,000. Currently, it's at 44. And that will not go into effect for us to start next year for 2025's taxes. It actually will go into effect August 1st for next year's taxes. So from August 1st till the end of the year, we are going to have an influx of individuals coming in, applying. We have to go back all the way to January of this year, review every single applicant that has applied for this year, for next year's taxes. We have to review them all. We have to review everybody that has been denied. We have to review everything that has already been approved, because it will change the category possibly that they're currently in. So all the work that we've done thus far on the seniors and discounts from January to date is going to be duplicated and actually clear up to August 1st, and then they can qualify again. So just to kind of bring you up to speed on that, it's going to be pretty intense on the demand. So it's not going to start next year for the following year. It actually will start this year for next year's taxes.
How many? How many did you have apply this year?
We have over 800 currently that we review every single year, all income, tax return statements, everything. 800. And that, just over 800, which if you break that down, that's considerable per day that we're doing. And that will, and that's at a maximum qualifying of 44,316, and that's going to right at 61,000. So that's going to be significant, the increase load on that for the county. So I don't know if you had any questions or anything. I just wanted to bring you up to speed on it.
Questions, Commissioner?
Okay. And I wanted to give Craig Erdman and the Public Works Department a kudo. Craig allowed us to steal his surveyor for a session with my department, and we had several of my staff members attend it for some in-house training that the state isn't really doing this year like we were hoping they were going to do. So Craig afforded us the opportunity to bring his surveyor in and use him for some in-house training, and we're working on some additional training that they're able to provide because of their certification, accreditation, expertise that will certainly aid us, even to the point of some software updating that would be very minimal, which will aid the administrative side on a lot of the legal clarifications when you've got to read legals and write legals and discern legals, and that every surveyor in the country sends to us. They don't all write the same like we would think they would, do they, Craig? There are a lot of different ways. So to decipher everything that all them surveyors or the different government agencies and cities are sending into us, it really helps. So I wanted to give them kudos at Public Works for helping us out there.
All right, thank you. Any other electeds or department heads?
Hello, I just want to bring attention to the state and local fiscal recovery funds, the SLFRF. I don't know if you guys are calling them ARPA, but the money that we have that's here for the county that we have to make decisions on how we're going to spend that. And I was just hoping that we're going to have some type of a roundtable planning meeting, because right now the prosecutor's office, along with OPD, which I thought about OPD is in the same serious situation we are right now with staffing. I've seen a common theme in the meeting today that I thought addresses this well, as far as Benton County, and we're always trying to catch up with Benton County, and we're behind with Benton County, yet we don't look at their salaries when we're looking at our salaries for Franklin County. And I know right now that we're losing attorneys left and right. We're in a crisis situation, almost to the point of detrimental to our county due to the shortage we have. And one of the funds that we have, it addresses in here, backlog of cases is one of the issues that this money is supposed to help with. I know Benton County, or for what I'm heard, I don't know for a fact, they're looking at recruitment and all kinds of things to get attorneys. We have never had this issue since I've been here or prior to my years. To recruit an attorney was never something we had to do in the past, but it's critical at this point. We can't find attorneys that want to come and work that have experience, so we're going to have the needs of training attorneys that are going to come to us straight out of college if we can recruit them. And so before Benton County uses their money and moves forward on this plan, I want us to be forward-thinking, and I would like to see some of this money looked at earmarking for our issues that we have in our office. We've addressed these issues before at budget hearings, and we were told we didn't have money for moving forward with these issues that we had, and now our issues are in a crisis situation. So I hope that we can have some planning meetings or discussions to how we're going to spend this money with the county, and that our office can be considered for some of these funds. Thank you.
Is there any other electeds or department heads? Seeing none, we'll move down to administration office business. Mr. Gonzalez?
I don't have any.
Okay. Mr. Davidson? All righty, we'll move down to public comment. Anybody for public comment?
George Dockstetter, Self Landing Road. A couple of things. I'm glad to see the Mike come out with some strategic planning, and I think the three of you, along with the heads of the departments, need to really dig in and not worry about today or not tomorrow morning, but 10 years from now, 15 years from now. The state's projected basically in another 17 years, we're going to have 50,000 more people. I think they're a little on the light side, and we're going to have a hell of a lot more than that. And I think you really need to get behind where you want to see the county in the future. And the one area I've pounded on and talked to all of you about before is roads. If you had the umpteen millions of dollars it'd take to put a bypass around north of Pasco and a bridge across, and you had the money sitting here right now, you couldn't even get started for 10 damn years. Just getting the permits, buying the right of way, fighting the tribes, fighting all the environmentalists. So you need to really start stepping up and thinking about where we're going, because you got a lot of lawsuits ahead of you to get anywhere to get some of these problems solved. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners and Administrator. It's always fun coming up here after George because you just say, rah, rah, George. And George has good ideas. I really think the idea of a strategic planning is really important for Franklin County. And just an idea, because I like throwing ideas up there and gives you something to round file later if it's not a good idea. But, to have a community planning meeting, individually with each different commissioner, 3 different, give public notice out well in advance and provide opportunity for the public to come in and put ideas. Everybody writes ideas on the wall, and it doesn't need to be something that's raced through, but a deliberative process I think would be really important. Looking down the road, as George said, it's going to take a long time to get to a bypass, on the north side of Tri-Cities, and start now. We don't have a strategic plan like you pointed out. I've been a part of a lot of the different strategic plans that Pasco's put. You know, they have a Parks and Recreation master plan. They have a roads master plan. They've gone through a deliberative process. Sheriff has told us a number of times how that he was a part of that back in the day as he came through in the police department side of things. I think it's really important, and I'm excited, Mr. Gonzalez, that you're forward thinking and thinking about doing that. And commissioners, I would encourage you to support him in that. And it's going to take resources and funding to go through that. And I don't know, put a date on it. You know, maybe 12 months from now that we're going to have a finalized county master plan and move forward. So excited to see that, and thankful for the month that Mr. Gonzalez has been here and his leadership. And I think you guys did well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment?
Thank you, Chairman. I am LaWanda Hatch. I live on Falls Road in Franklin County. First of all, Mr. Gonzalez, I just want to say you're a rock star. I really appreciate you very much. The thing that's great about Mr. Gonzalez is he doesn't come to anything like, I know what the problem is, I know how to solve it. He asks a lot of questions. He looks for the truth. And I love people that look for the truth. I'm shocked. I didn't even know we didn't have a strategic plan for Franklin County. So it's really great that you're implementing that. I had on March 9th put in a records request. I just put it through, and I know at that time it was kind of crazy because you were just hiring Mr. Gonzalez at the time, and I don't even think he was on board yet. So that ended up getting sent to the wrong department. It was sent to the planning, and it should have been sent to Public Works. Then, so Public Works got it the end of March, and then there's normally by law, the RCW, I don't have it on quote, 42.56.520, you have to give a 5-day response. The letter that I have here for the 5-day response, I didn't get till the 20th, and then I got it resent to me on the 24th. It's dated May 5th, so I looked in my spam. I didn't get it in my spam. I don't know what happened on that, but I've never received a response letter like this. The first line of it literally says, Franklin County is in receipt of your Public Works request dated 4/4/2023, and then just recites my entire letter, and then says, at the end, it just says, thank you for contacting Franklin County, sincerely, and then Public Works. There's no ETA on here. I asked when I got this, I responded, when will I expect to get this information, my public request, and nothing. I didn't get a response to that at all. So I don't know if there needs to be some training on how to do records request, but I've done several through the school district and even different departments in the county, and I've always been given an estimated time of when I would get that information. So I don't know what's going on with that. Anyhow, and then the other thing that I hear, and I feel bad for the Public Works Department because they've had their budget, stolen over many years, robbing Peter to pay Paul. And I have, said years ago, we need to sell, it was then the track, but we really need to sell that Hapo Center because that I've talked to people out in the county, nobody uses it. It's, expensive. It's never been run well. And it's just a boondoggle on our county. We can't afford it. I think it could be a great center, but it could be a great center if a private entity owned it as well. And so that is my feelings on that. And then we really need to pay back Peter. We need to pay the Public Works back for all of the money that we've gotten so that they can maintain the roads. We shouldn't need another sales tax. We had the money, so thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any callers?
We do have a couple callers on the phone.
Hello, caller, you have 3 minutes.
I hear the dial tone.
Caller, you have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Michelle Andrews calling in, and amidst all the things that people are raising to your attention is somehow I got an email yesterday that HR was going to go ahead and post the Chief Examiner/Secretary position to the website. After a long meeting last week, everybody was there. We were told that it had to go through the process of you approving the money for that and going through Tim to make sure it was there before we posted. So I'm not feeling well. I called into Michael, I explained to him what's going on. I'm not relinquishing my position as chairman right now, but I do have a date with a surgical appointment in Spokane on Thursday. We're out of process again because we're shorthanded in all these departments. And I don't see that position being approved on this agenda. I checked way back in that meeting where we were all together, and I was assured that it was coming up because of the 2-week requirement on the 9th. So I am raising this issue to make sure that the Civil Service Commission does get what it needs in the proper order, that there be no testing in the Sheriff's Office, and that I do have a request under 41.14.200 that we understand and have some introduction of the HR duties that have been signed to Cheryl Brunk come from the Sheriff's Office to the Commission, so we know how to communicate or what we need to communicate on with their office. But I was told that, well, as long as there's a civil service person available, they can do testing over there. They cannot. There's nothing in this statute that provides for that. So let's get this in order, please. I'm calling in when I really didn't want to. And at the risk of sounding like a broken, wheel or a squeaky wheel, I just want the process to follow what we met about and for someone to get a handle on this. I remain available by phone and appreciate that everybody's shorthanded. I think that's what does delay documents getting out, is that the county is undergoing an immense shortage across the board. And so I'm just making this a priority as it should be and follow the course that we discussed in the meeting last week. And again, I am available by phone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner, I do believe we have one more caller.
Hi. So last week I was assured the in-house recording was working, and it appears the public comments from the first section are not on the posted on the YouTube channel. So pardon any repeat of that. So I was watching the other day on YouTube a lady where the guy was holding hostage at gunpoint, and he even threatened the officers when they arrived. But instead of the officers shooting through the hostage like they do in Pasco, the officers backed away, and 7 hours later, it was resolved peacefully for everybody involved. Now, that is not always the situation, but in Franklin County, they prefer the old gunslinger mentality. See, when the sheriff stepped up 2 weeks ago now and stated that, he's from Waller, he's not from around here, he wanted and believed that the rest of you would join in his discrimination, in his toxic behavior. You don't need a copy of his personnel file. You just need to look at the 3 HR directors and 45 personnel that have left. I, Victor Scott, brought to the prosecutor and the sheriff's office proof of felony to the Pasco Police Department. And according to public records request, the sheriff's office did not even keep that record. Over 50 pages providing felonies against the Pasco Police. Yet, they have failed to keep that report. 3 HR directors and 45 employees cannot be wrong. The mass exodus speaks to the behavior. Now, I also call for the recall of Jim Raymond. Here we go. It says, you have a clean record because you failed to keep reports against yourself. You fail to think the discrimination that you engaged in when you said, he's from Walla Waller. By the way, I'm from Benton, Franklin County now, and I was before then also. But you can't keep records true and complete. You can't keep them because you yourself, they were about you, and you did not want those reports to go to the state police. You need to be recalled like Hatcher. Recall Jim Raymond like we did Hatcher. I would appreciate if my public comments from last week and the in-house recording was put up on the public so the public would see what was really and fully said, because I truly fear for retaliation and false context in my comments being removed and taken out of context. And again, Mr. Gonzalez, I do not believe you are engaged in corruption. I do not believe corruption clouds the commissioners hire. I believe what happens is you are very intimately involved and nearby, and you are not vetted in the proper manner. So it is your duty to stay above and beyond. And don't worry so much about your public image as taking care of the public and the problems at hand. Public image, I think, Lawanda Hatch said a couple weeks back, oh, that's propaganda if you don't have a peer-reviewed report. Well, if what they're putting out on the public comments are not peer-reviewed by the public and they don't allow the public comments to be unedited, then it's not anything but propaganda. And the Franklin County commonly edits comments. The Franklin County sheriffs commonly edits comments to what they call relevant, but they allow them to remove complaints against them.
Okay.
And that has commonly been a practice.
Thank you. Is there anybody else for public comment? Anybody else on the phone?
That's it, Commissioner. Thank you.
Nobody else for public comment? So with that, we'll move into executive session, I believe. Mr.
Yes,
Gonzalez?
Commissioners, we do have a need for an executive session under RCW 42.30.110, Section 1, Subsection D, to review negotiations of performance of publicly bid contracts. And I would say we can budget 30 minutes.
Okay.
Sean, I think it would be good for you to be in here. Yeah.
We've come out, mics aren't on. Testing. Oh, we've come out of executive session. We're going to extend for another 15 minutes, the same RCW, and at this time we'll recess into executive session. We're out of executive session. We're back to regular session at this time. Is there any other business for the good of the county? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Can you give this to Craig Herdman?